Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Waffles RC. Today we are going to get started on the 79 series. So I've wanted this body for a little over a year now. Finally have it. Started the buggy build, so kind of put this off a little too long, but we are going to get to it now. So this one will be quite a bit of fabricating because it's a single cab. And it came with a bed. But I'm not going to use this bed. Well, not with this. This will become a trailer. And this is going to get a flatbed with a canopy. I believe that's what Australians call it. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm sure that I am. So you Australians let me know and correct me on everything that I'm going to do wrong on this. So single cab, flatbed. I'm going to try to make it look like the other ones. That's going to be easy. Now whether I can get doors on the side, that's going to be a completely different animal, and who knows what we can come up with. For now, let's get started on the main bed structure, and then from there, see where it goes. Here's our cab. Yes, it's missing a lot of parts. I already painted this. I got the white one because it was the cheapest one. I was going to try and do spray painting camo, but I realized that's really hard on something this small. So I got camo wrap because it seems like it'll be easier. The pictures I found over there on the Googles, the main bed frame is about right here and goes straight out like this. I was sitting here looking at pictures, wondering how, okay, I know my main place, I know my width, how am I going to guess my length? Because I want it to look proportional. But then I had a realization. I have a measuring thing right there. It's called the bed. So I'll do it to the length of that, but different width, because the flatbeds that they put on these things in Australia are just a little bit wider than the factory bed. We're going to use the same stuff that I use for the frames on everything else that I build. It's just 1/2 inch square stock. It's worked out really well. It's really strong. Once again, I'm not overly concerned about weight, so this is what we're going to run. So the way that I'm going to try and do this one is I'm going to do 45-degree angle cuts, so that way I don't have an open end like I have on a couple of the other ones. So I'm going to do 45s for each one and hope that I measure correctly, so that way you can just weld everything up, grind it down, and it looks good. Okay, so our width, we want it to be a little bit wider than stock, because that's how the Australians do it. I will do 7 3/4. Maybe I should write this down. And then if you're doing this on the same one that I am, this piece, can you see that? Yeah. So this piece right here slides inside of the cab. So we don't want that. So we're going to put that at 8.5 inches long. Write it down. You can write down however it helps you. This is upside down for you, but it's right side up for me. Just write it down any way that you can remember it. Got them all cut up as you saw. Did 45 degrees on each corner, so that way they can just line up like that, weld it up. Hopefully we'll have a square. I also had a realization while I was cutting that I've been calling this a canopy. And of course, I'm an American, so I've been saying it wrong. I realized this is a tray. You guys correct me. I'm sure that I'm still wrong, but I'm trying. Should count for something. So we're gonna weld the tray together. And I guess for the Australians, what is the box on the back that it's enclosed? Is that still part of the tray? I don't know. I only know that I really like the 79 series and I watch four-wheel drive 24/7, and that's about the extent of my knowledge of Australian vehicles and terminology. So please correct me if I'm wrong, so that way I can, in the future, pronounce or say stuff correctly. So let's weld this up. As you can see by my face inside of a rectangle, here's our tray. Ground it all down, made it look nice and pretty. It's still hot, and yes, I'm still touching it because welder. You ask any welder, they'll do the same thing. Oh, I just welded and grinded on that. Maybe I should pick it up with my hands. Got that done. Hey, it's almost like I measured it or something. It's just a little bit wider. Not by much. And I realize I'm touching hot metal to plastic, so that's smart. Should look something about like that. Yep. It's about what I thought it would look like. Making a flatbed is actually quite easy. Make a rectangle, and it comes out pretty nice. I realized that I am quite short on metal, at least of this stuff. I was going to start making the frame for the whole truck too. What's this? Found this stuff. I'm going to dig around and see if I can find any more. This is where we're at so far. I was able to find enough metal to make the frame. So basically, front kicks down, goes down for under the cab, and this part is just going to sit just above it, I think. Yeah, I think that might work. I may have to put an arch in it somewhere. And there we have it. We have our frame rails. They are not the prettiest of things, but once again, it goes under our body. So as long as it's functional and strong, that's what really matters. We have our frame rails. We have our tray. So we'll come back another day and keep going with this, get the frame together, and I have to start getting the body together to figure out how I'm going to mount this to this. So, see you in the next day. All right, it's another day. We're back on the 79. I don't know why I just said that, because to you, it was literally like 4 seconds ago. For me, it's been a week. So, I'm back on the 79. You guys are continuing on because the magic of movies. It's not a movie. So, we have our frame made. Partially, we have frame rails made. We have our tray frame made. So now, I've had these for a while, but we have our axles. They seem like pretty good axles so far. I don't know, because they're right here and not underneath a running RC. So I don't know yet. So what we're going to do is keep moving on. So now we have this. What we have to do is figure out the width that we want to make our frame rail using dimensions here. Now this is all completely up to you, how you want to make it, where you want to mount your shocks and your control arms and everything like that. The way that I'm going to do it, the front here is going to be links with coilovers or just shocks that have coils in them. I'm trying to use all the stuff that I have already that I've gotten for other projects and took off or didn't use or whatever. So this will be linked with coilovers. This, however, because proper 79s, 79 series down in Australia, unless they've converted them, are leaf springs in the rear. So somehow I have to use this axle, which is designed for links, to take leaf springs. Now I know that there are people out there that can use a 3D printer and make a little standoff, or I'm sure somebody sells a kit for them to be able to run leaf springs on this type of axle. I do not have said things, and I don't feel like paying for it. So what I have is a lot of metal and a grinder and a welder. So I'm going to come up with a plan, figure out how to get these on the axle, and then go from there. So I've been trying to get these leaf springs to work on this axle for about an hour now, and I cannot figure out a good way of getting it to attach to the axle. Getting it attached to the frame, easy. I can mount them to the axle, but not in a good way. So what we're going to do is ignore the part that I ground out right there, and we're going to upgrade this to links because I'm impatient and I want to get back to work. So links it is. Got our end pieces to the frame on here. The way I measured it is, you can do your own measurements however you want, but I did it on the outside of the frame. The shock can go on here, but I'm actually going to put it out here and space off the top of the shock so that way it has room to move about. Normally I would do it to the outside here, but I discovered that I'm always having to space the shocks off, so I brought it in. Once you figure out your measurement of how wide you want the frame, you cut out the pieces, but take into consideration, like I always seem to forget to, the actual thickness, if you're doing it on the inside, the thickness of the frame rails themselves. I have made that mistake on almost every single frame, except for this one. See, you can always learn from things, especially from mistakes. So now I have the frame width for the axles. Since I'm doing this hard body here, don't have a spot really to put body posts. So I have to make some sort of mounting system for this body to sit on here, so that way, you know, the body stays on. I got to figure that out while being able to get all the other stuff on and off, like, you know, the doors and the hood. But it does have a lot of different hole locations. Most hard bodies do. So you just kind of make one and go from there. So this is what I came up with. The front will sit on these. The back of the cab, I just have to drill some holes through the cab, through these, and through these, obviously. But I got to get it all centered up. Smack that one down with a hammer, make it level. Then the cab is mounted in a way that the body can sit on there. Well, this was all cooling from welding everything up. So one thing about almost every single one of these axle housings that you get is if you run a track bar system, the track bar always mounts on the passenger side, which for American or left-hand drive cars, that is 100% accurate. Well, this is an Australian car. They drive on the wrong side, I mean the right-hand side of the road. So to make this properly scale, I made this little plate, very simple. Just drilled a hole through the housing, put a bolt and a flat plate that sits on the axle housing so it can't move over. So now the track bar is going to mount over here and go up to the frame that way, just like a right-hand drive vehicle does. Same with the steering. As you can see, the long bolt is over here, and that's for the steering to go from here up to the servo. All I have to do is move this bolt over here and this bolt over here. Now the steering is going to come from here down to this knuckle. See, who else goes through that trouble except for Waffles RC? Trying to make it what it's going to look like. An Australian vehicle, which is right-hand drive, so the steering and the track bar come from the driver's side, come from the driver's side, which is the right side, down to the axle. Or wait. Yeah, down to the axle. Sorry, got confused. I'm American, if you couldn't tell. This is the only two aspects that I have to worry about. Now, I gotta drill holes, cut these plates, get the body mounted, then we can start working on the links and get the axles mounted. And there we are. Body is mounted. See? Mounted quite well. It's in 4 spots. These back ones here, I know I'm going to regret that choice of putting them there once I have the doors on. Because right now it's very simple. Just reach in, hold the nut, wham bam. But, you know, a door goes there. And there's glass on the, well, the tray will be on the back, but there's window on the front. I did cut the windows out of here, so don't have to worry about that. Oh, and I just noticed another issue. I gotta get a dashboard here. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, because for right now, we're worried about making this thing look like an RC or look like a truck, and we'll get some axles on it. So that is the next step. Now that the body's mounted, I did center it, and I used a tape measure too, so I know it's centered. So let's get the front axle on, see how that looks. All right, got carried away, so sorry about that, but got lower control arms mounted, the one upper control arm mounted. This will have a track bar, so you only need 3 links. These are the wheels I'm gonna run because I bought these for the hauler there, but I didn't like them, and the tires that I chose for the hauler, these wheels didn't like them either. But for this, I think it's gonna be really good. I don't like, the only thing that's holding the bead lock together is just basically the lug bolts. So we'll see how these do. I now got, you know, good sized tires on them. They're not huge. I think they're like 4.1s or 4.2s. So decently small tire. So I have the tires on here because I need to get the body on. And for the shocks, I'm trying something different, so I'm sure it's the correct way of doing it. I'm going to mount the shocks on here onto the axle, bottom everything out with the body on, so that way the tires won't come up and rub into the body too much. Turning will be a completely different story, but that's what I'm going to try to do, and then the springs will basically set the right height. There are no springs in these. I've had these. These came off of the red Jeep there. I had these as just secondaries, but they were limiting it. So they will go on this. And yes, this thing is going to be many colors with blue link ends, red shocks, camo body, green camo body. I'm trying to use everything that I already have from either old projects or stuff that I haven't used because it didn't work. I'm trying to use all that. So the fact that it's not going to match, you guys at home can do the same thing too. If you have a bunch of parts for a bunch of projects or stuff that you took off and you kept, like I do, you can make another RC with it. I mean, other than the axles, which I bought, and the tires, I'm using links out of my link drawer, link ends that I've had for a while, and these shocks. So still spending money. I mean, there's no getting around that, but let's get the body on and see what it looks like. And there we have our shocks mounted. I also made the track bar mount up on the frame, left room for adjustment depending on steering servo location, obviously. Now, are my shock mounts the prettiest things in the world? No, but once again, just like my normal theories, body's going to cover it, so I don't care what it looks like. See, what ugly shock mounts. You can't see them at all. I will definitely say this is for sure a 79 if an American was able to do it, because I don't think Australian law allows the tires to stick out quite so far. Now, I know you just noticed that this tire is out further than this one. Remember, it's a track bar setup and it's fully bottomed out right now. So if I lift it up, it moves over. It should be about right height. And now they're mostly equal. I just built it, so there's still a lot of alignment things to do. I do have to say also that I like working with this particular hard body, because it actually looks like you're building a car, because you have just the shell, just a frame, and then you got to figure out everything else from there. But it looks like you're building a real car, but it's just a little one. Now let's eliminate this problem and put a rear axle in. Now the good thing about doing this tray setup that I'm doing is that I can basically put this rear axle wherever I want it to go. So I'm just gonna kind of guess. This one is going to be a triangulated 4-link, so obviously no track bar. So in just a second for you and probably 45 minutes for me, I'm gonna weld some tabs on here and have this thing underneath here somewhere. And there we go, guys. We got the rear axle on there. Put the tray frame on there just to get a look at it, and man, this thing is cool. I am so incredibly happy with this thing. I actually really like the wheels on it too. I was questioning them, but this is gonna look so cool once I get the boxes and all the fun stuff I have planned for this thing. So for the rear end, you can see I just did triangulated, put some shock towers, some tabs for the shocks, mounted everything, did the lower control arm brackets right there, did the upper control arms through the frame, and it worked out quite well. This is all bottomed out, so it is going to get taller with the once the springs are in there. So this whole area right here will have a little toolbox. I'm going to make it look like a toolbox. Same thing back here. I'll do a small one, some fender flares just to pretend like it's almost legal in Australia, even though the fronts are very much not. Like I said, this is a 79 if an American owned it. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed it. We are coming along very nicely on this one. I'm super happy with how it's turned out. Like I said, I've wanted this thing for over a year now, and I'm just ecstatic that it's coming together. Still have a lot of alignment stuff to do. When you build these things like this, get it close. You can adjust everything after it's all together and square it up and make sure it drives straight. Next week, what we're going to be working on this one will be the stuff for the bed, figuring out a steering servo, and somehow mounting the transmission that I got and a motor all underneath the hood. That's going to be the interesting part, but we will make it work. I tried a few different things when I put this together, because normally I would do the suspension with trying to get ride height when I put it together, but you never know the actual weight. So this time I did it with all the suspension bottomed out in preparation for then it'll be at ride height. Hopefully that's the goal. We'll see how well that plays out, but it worked out really well of getting this thing mostly level. 79s do sit a little bit higher in the rear, so I would say I planned that, but I didn't, and it was an accident. But we're gonna roll with it and say that I planned it. Eventually I do have to put all the body together, which there's a lot of parts for that. Not overly excited to do that, but and make this thing look like something. So I also have to make a front bumper, and then the guards that go along the side, and some rock sliders that incorporate into those. So this thing's gonna take a lot of work because it's my scale build. And I can tell you that it's a scale build because see that track bar going down the wrong side? That's where it's supposed to mount. So keeping it true to a right-hand drive vehicle, not just having right-hand drive stuff sitting in here and then the steering coming from this side. So thank you all very much, and we will see you on the next one.